Transylvania. Just saying the name casts a mist over the mind. A land shrouded in mystery, legend, and blood. If you've heard of Count Dracula, chances are you picture these dark lands as the backdrop of haunting tales. But what if I told you? Behind the fiction lies a real figure, even more terrifying. Today, we dive into the life of Vlad III, known to many as Vlad the Impaler, one of the most feared names of the Middle Ages, a man whose cruelty pierced through the centuries and gave rise to the most famous vampire in Western culture. Prepare to step into a story forged in honor, vengeance, torture, and pure terror. Because the blood spilled by Vlad was no legend, it was history. Son of the Dragon. The most famous Dracula story was written in the year 1897 by an Irishman named Bram Stoker. Since then, the myth has crossed generations. It became a play, a movie, a series, and even cartoons. But what if I told you that the Dracula of fiction may have been inspired by someone real? This man was born in Transylvania, but ruled the lands to the south, the fearsome region of Wallachia. His name was Vlad III, and his tale begins in 1431. At the height of one of the greatest empires the world has ever known, the Ottoman Empire. Vlad was of noble blood. His father, Vlad II, was Prince of Wallachia and a member of the secretive Order of the Dragon, a Christian brotherhood founded by Sigismund, Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. That's why he was given the name Dracula, which means dragon in Romanian. And his son? Dracula, the son of the dragon. The family followed the Orthodox Christian faith, and young Vlad was also initiated into the order. He grew up in a world torn by religion, where the spread of Islam pushed Christianity further into retreat. To hold onto his throne, Vlad's father was forced to submit to Sultan Murad of the Ottoman Empire. He agreed to pay tribute, but that wasn't enough. He was ordered to send two of his sons, Vlad and Radu, to live as hostages at the Ottoman court. It was the subtle way to keep a prince on his knees. The boys spent nearly 6 years among the Muslims. They learned the language, the customs, the tactics of war. But while Radu adapted, smiled, and charmed everyone, Vlad grew angry, untamed, and he paid the price with whippings and beatings. Some say that's where he lost all regard for life and for people. During that time, Vlad met another boy his age, Mehmed, the Sultan's son. They grew up together, like brothers. But Radu eventually converted to Islam. And rumors whisper that he and Mehmed formed a bond deeper than politics would ever admit. Not Vlad. He returned home. In 1448, he arrived back in Wallachia, only to find tragedy. His father had been murdered the year before, and the one behind it was none other than John Hunyadi, the powerful Hungarian warlord who placed a new ruler on the throne. Ladislaus aligned with Catholic interests. Vlad swore revenge for his father and for everything he'd lost. With limited help from the Ottomans, he briefly seized the throne of Wallachia. But Hunyadi struck back just as fast, and Vlad vanished. He wandered through Moldavia and Transylvania, exiled and forgotten, until, against all odds, he won the support of the people. And later, even Hunyadi himself recognized Vlad as an ally. Together, they launched a new campaign. With Hungarian forces at his side, Vlad personally hunted down Ladislaus and killed him with his bare hands. It was 1456. Vlad became the rightful prince of Wallachia. And that is when his name began to echo through the halls of fear. Ladislaus still had supporters scattered across the region, And Vlad knew that even a moment of hesitation could cost him the crown. So he acted, not with diplomacy, but with fire, blood, and brutality. He hunted his enemies, burned entire villages, wiped out Saxon communities, and unleashed his fury on the nobles he believed had betrayed his father. In one of the darkest episodes of his rise, he invited those nobles to a grand feast. He offered them wine, food, kindness. But after dessert, he ordered all the elders executed. The younger ones were enslaved. It wasn't enough to defeat his enemies. Vlad had to send a message. With him, there would be no second chances. The Prince of Cruelty. Vlad's name spread like a chilling whisper through the dark corridors of Europe. He wasn't just the Prince of Wallachia. He was the master of torture. And no one would ever forget the method that made him eternal: impalement. Vlad devised ways of killing that would make the devil himself recoil. He boiled victims alive. He tore limbs from their bodies. Some chronicles even claim he had their skin peeled off. But it was impalement that carved his name into history. This medieval technique involved driving a sharpened stake through the human body, from bottom to top, from the rectum, up to the mouth. And it wasn't quick. Many victims took days to die in agony. They said it was better to die in battle than fall into Vlad's hands. His reputation crossed borders. In Eastern Europe, he was known as the lunatic who turned human beings into meat scarecrows. And to make it worse, he displayed the impaled corpses along roads, hillsides, and city outskirts, as if they were part of Wallachia's natural landscape. It's estimated that over 100,000 people died under his orders. And oddly enough, many chroniclers report that during Vlad's rule, there were no crimes in Wallachia, no thieves, no murderers, no traitors, perhaps because no one wanted to end up as decoration in his impaled forests. One tale says Vlad once gathered all the beggars of his kingdom. He promised them a grand feast. "Food for all," he declared, "for you, who produce nothing, yet are still part of my people." They ate, and when the banquet ended, Vlad locked the doors and set the building on fire. Women weren't spared either. He had zero tolerance for adultery or premarital relations. Punishments were brutal. Blood and public humiliation were part of the sentence. Some legends claim that Vlad drank the blood of his victims, that he dined surrounded by impaled corpses, as if they were centerpieces at his table. A meal in his presence was a performance of horror. But as Vlad's infamy grew, so did Mehmed II's empire. In 1453, the Sultan captured Constantinople, capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, and changed world history forever. That conquest marked the end of the Middle Ages in the eyes of many historians. The Ottoman Empire had become the most powerful military force on earth. And who dared challenge it? Vlad. Always Vlad. Wallachia was still expected to pay tribute to the Sultan, but Vlad, now unhinged and defiant, refused. He began stockpiling weapons, hiring mercenaries, and fortifying his lands. Mehmed responded by sending envoys. Some say they planned to assassinate Vlad, but that's not what happened. Vlad was insulted because the messengers didn't remove their turbans in his presence. His answer? He had the turbans nailed to their skulls. That was the spark. Mehmed gathered his armies. He marched on Wallachia. But what he found wasn't a typical enemy. Vlad struck first. He used every dirty trick in the book. He poisoned wells. He spread plague using sick soldiers. He knew how the Ottomans thought, fought, and even how they slept. because he had once lived among them. And he used that knowledge like a silent weapon. He fought in the mud with his men. He bled beside them. And in one of his boldest maneuvers, his soldiers disguised themselves as Ottomans and launched a surprise night raid on the enemy camp. It was a ghost war. No one knew who to trust anymore. Paranoia swept through the Ottoman ranks. Mehmed was losing patience. He launched offensive after offensive. And when he finally decided to replace Vlad, he chose someone very familiar. Radu, the converted brother. The war dragged on. Vlad fought back with merciless tactics, ambushes, traps, psychological warfare. His army wasn't the strongest, but it was the most brutal. Even Mehmed the Conqueror began to wonder, could this madman be defeated? Vlad turned to Christian kingdoms for support, but no one offered help. And when the Ottomans finally reached Wallachia's capital, they expected open battle. What they found instead was something no soldier's nightmare could ever prepare them for. The Forest of Terror. Outside the city, the Ottoman army came to a halt, not out of fear of ambush, but because of something far worse. Before their eyes rose a sight that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The Forest of the Impaled. 20,000 corpses. 20,000 Ottoman soldiers pierced by wooden stakes, rotting under the sun, filling the air with the stench of death. The forest stretched roughly 3 kilometers long and 1 wide, a full field of horror. Some historians claim that even Sultan Mehmed himself stood frozen before the nightmare, that he may have whispered, "You cannot fight a man who is capable of this." Vlad had crossed every boundary of warfare. He wasn't just an enemy. He was fear made flesh. The kind of adversary who didn't need to be greater, only more terrifying. As the Ottomans advanced, Vlad vanished into the shadows of Transylvania. And there, he did the unthinkable. He sought aid from a former enemy, the Hungarian king, Matthias Corvinus. Meanwhile, his brother Radu, now allied with the Ottomans, seized the throne of Wallachia. Faced with defeat, Vlad's wife took her own life. She threw herself from the castle window. It was the price of loving a cursed man. That escape, in the year 1462, seemed like the end of Vlad's saga. But it wasn't. Matthias imprisoned him for a time, yet eventually they drew closer. Some sources suggest Vlad remarried, this time to a Hungarian noblewoman. Then, in 1476, with the backing of disgruntled Wallachian and Transylvanian nobles, Vlad launched his final offensive. He reclaimed the throne of Wallachia. But not for long. When the Transylvanian allies returned to their lands, the Ottomans struck again. And this time, Vlad fell. In December of that same year, he was killed. His head was severed, mounted on a stake, and sent to Constantinople. There, it was displayed like a war trophy, a warning, an ending, or almost, because Vlad the Impaler never truly vanished. His name still thunders through history like a storm trapped in time, especially in Romania, where he's remembered with a strange reverence, a protector of his people, a monster to his enemies. It's worth noting that in the Middle Ages, impalement was already used as the ultimate punishment for criminals like pedophiles. What made Vlad a legend wasn't the method, it was the scale. And the question that still haunts us is, where did such brutality come from? The betrayals? The death of his father? The Ottoman punishments? Perhaps we'll never know, but the world will never forget his name. Vlad, the Impaler. But don't worry, here on this channel, we'd never impale our subscribers. Quite the opposite. We actually like you. And we know you like us too. So to strengthen this sacred alliance even more, share this video with your friends, spread the word, and help our channel keep growing, without having to impale anyone along the way. We'll see you in the next dark chapter of history. Until then, may your curiosity never die.